guess I'll start it up, see if we blow it up. If you didn't see the last video, we pulled off the oil pan and found this. Thinking more about it, I'm hoping that it's extras from drilling into the oil pan from when we installed our turbo drain. So the plan for this video is basically redo the oil pan, fill it with some fluids, and get it running. So I've installed the gear oil, but didn't film it. So we're gonna reinstall the drive shaft. I'm not really gonna show you all that either. I actually took all of yesterday and didn't film anything, and worked on this thing. My chassis harness bench tested it, and everything's working out just fine. So I guess I'll start it up, see if we blow it up. That sounds awful. We made sure all the coils were firing, they worked just fine. The next problem would be fuel, which I don't think is our problem, but I can go through and make sure all the injectors work just fine after this round. I'll try round 2, and I'm going to film it for my car buddies, so hopefully they let me know what's happening. So just a couple of things to note here. We noticed that the idle is high, it's running about 1600 RPM. The smoke is from it running rich and oil, and more on that later. And the car dies about 1 minute in, but the good thing is it died because it ran out of fuel and not because it died. Recording, hey. So we had oil coming out of our downpipe, but I believe that is the oil from when we put oil in the cylinders to make sure that our rings weren't bad, but it turns out they weren't bad and I'm just an idiot. There's also one small oil leak, but not from the pan because I fixed it, from our sandwich plate, and not from the sandwich itself, which is good, just one of the little adapters for our turbo feed. We're looking good there. So I put some gas in her, and we're getting a lost RPM sync, which was what we were getting before. Early on camera, that's what you saw, is it idling really well, didn't have any sync loss, and then now it does have sync loss. So I'm at a loss. You like that pun? I don't know if it's a faulty plug or what's going on. So, but that's something we will tackle tomorrow. I'm gonna try to start the car, let it idle. I've had more magical things happen before, so. So, as you probably heard from this ridiculousness, it sounded really good at the beginning, and then it sounded not so good. So after thinking about it, the first thing I did was go and check our spark plugs, thinking maybe I had fouled them out from the oil that I had put in the cylinders beforehand. So pulled off our coil packs and found this. Not looking too hot. So this was an easy fix. Pull out the old ones and throw in the new ones. Still losing our sync signal. A new problem comes up. There's a lot of oil coming out of both sides of the turbo. We'll return to the loss of sync signal shortly, but first, oil problems. So again, having to tear into my car, I pulled the downpipe off, went and pulled the turbo off, and I wanted to make sure that the oil was not coming out of our exhaust ports, because that would lead to a huge hurt in my wallet when we're buying new pistons and rings, and at that point rods, and you just get down the rabbit hole, and we might as well pull everything and redo it all. I eventually did get everything off and checked the exhaust port, and thankfully they were completely dry, which leads us to the next issue that it could possibly be. After consulting with the buddies, makes us think that this is a dash 8 hose, because this is what I had on hand. We're thinking that most people run dash 10, and we think for this reason that our oil feed line needs to be a restrictor, and that we're getting too much oil in here and blowing past the seals on both sides, which completely makes sense. I have what I need for this to change our oil drain to a dash 10 fitting. So this came in today, which is a dash 10 oil drain fitting thing from Vibrant. We'll get this guy hooked up, and then our fittings for our turbo are coming in the next couple of days, so we can get those put on there. So again, which seems to be never ending, I'm making AN lines. The Vibrant kit was pretty nice. Pulled it out, measured, put it all together. It did come with some extra adapters, which is really nice, but it was also 70 bucks, and just kind of a kick in the head because I had used the wrong hose and could have saved that money and that hose and used it on something else. I figured out the problem the whole time was that those blue anodized parts, the reducers from 10 a.m. to 8 a.m. were just really ugly. So that must have been it, because that looks freaking mint. This right here is a kit to extend our oil drain from our turbo, because currently, if you remember from last time, this is our setup. It is very tight, and I had to put a reducer here just in order to get this to fit. It was a whole thing. So here I'm just installing our drain extension, which made an absolute world of difference and made my life so much easier. So I did make up the one end of the AN lines so that I could reinstall our exhaust manifold and our turbo and have an accurate measurement. And I have to say, it came out pretty snazzy. Right, new turbo drain installed. There it is. It's a little, you know, squirrely whirly, but it all flows down and there's no high spots. And just like that, she was all put back together. I ended up putting the intercooler piping back in. Obviously there's no intercooler, but we'll put that in here in a little while. Hopefully we can get this thing running and gunning tonight. I did put the new oil restrictor in here, so it's 1.5 mil oil restrictor, I think. If I remember correctly, it might just be a 1. And then put our feed back on. Our drain is tightened up, so we should be good there with no more oil problems. Very excited about that. Now we're back to our sink loss problem. I believe the issue we're having is due to the fact that we don't have a resistor in line with our crank signal. So I've rigged up a couple of things that I will try to throw on after this. So as you can probably see at the beginning, it's running just fine, but after you let it run for a little while, you get this. So my buddy Carl at DIY was like, hey man, take a tooth log, take a composite log, and read this article. So I did that, and I looked at the tooth log, and it looked exactly like one of the examples that said, hey, you probably have some noise in there. You need to put a resistor in parallel to start. So that's what we're going to do. Boom, resistor. We're going to put it in parallel with our crank sensor. So we're going to start by doing that. That one doesn't work. We'll put it in series. I have temporarily put it in parallel, so I made little openings on each wire. I connected it and just wrapped them around and connected it that way. That should be plenty in order to see some sort of noise cleanup. Hopefully it fixes our problems and I can make this a lot more permanent than what it is currently. Fix that problem. Also, it idles really well. I don't even know what I've filmed in this video so far. I put that resistor in parallel and an immediate fix. So at least now that I know the source of the vacuum leak, I can go ahead and pull the intake off, silicone it. It's going to have to sit for about 24 hours, I believe, according to the box, before we're able to turn the engine on again. While we have that off, I'm going to go ahead and put our oil pressure sensor on, get that all wired up so we have another sensor that's going to be good.
because my vacuum leak is back because it's just covered with duct tape. Running strong, sounds pretty good.
You know, I ran it for a little while, and I thought, you know what would sound really cool? Some turbo noises. My camera. I'm always talking to my camera. I don't have any friends. So it was time to actually fix the vacuum leaks, not just temporarily fix them with duct tape. As cool and as well as it did work, kind of, sometimes. So we have our O-ring that'll go between the intake adapter here and our intake, because that's where the slot for the O-ring is at. And then what we have planned for between our intake adapter and our throttle body, as such, is we're going to use some RTV. Gray Permatex RTV should work perfect for this. It does take a while to set up and get everything applied, wait 45 minutes, torque it down, and then we can do the same to the throttle body side. So the entire intake adapter has pretty much been a pain in the butt since the beginning. I am currently looking into and hoping to have a solution for the entire intake manifold here in the future. For now, this is what I got. While we're waiting for our RTV to set up so that we can torque it down, we're going to multitask. We're going to put back our intercooler piping. Another thing is the intercooler piping. Eventually, I want to get solid pieces of raw aluminum as soon as I have a 220 plug and do some aluminum welding myself. That is one of the things that is on the list to do. Make this a lot cleaner, a lot less joints, and make it easier to get in and out of the car. Alright, so as you can see, we've got our RTV done, everything's torqued down, we've got our intercooler piping done, but eventually I want to be able to get a different intercooler, one that's just slightly smaller, so it makes our intercooler piping a lot easier to route. Our last thing, besides making the RTV work, is finishing up this weld right here. I guess because I wasn't thinking, I welded everything on our downpipe except for the V-band to the actual downpipe itself. As soon as I have my stainless set up for my TIG stuff, I'll go ahead and weld a bead around that, and I might as well finish up the rest of this exhaust. So I'll probably order all of that here pretty soon, but that'll be in a future video. And forgot to shoot an outro. Hope y'all have a great day. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.